Welcome to Voice for Infection Prevention, where we explore the latest developments, challenges, and insights in the field of infection prevention and control. With a passion for promoting patient safety and healthcare excellence, we're excited to bring you engaging discussions with experts, leaders, and innovators in the field. So whether you're a seasoned professional or just beginning your journey in infection prevention, welcome to the conversation. This is Voice for Infection Prevention.
Welcome back to Voice for Infection Prevention. Today we have an incredible guest who has made a lasting impact in the field of infection prevention. Cristine Lacerna started her journey in a way many of you can relate to, stumbling into infection prevention without knowing just how vast and complex it really is. From navigating construction-related infection control early in her career to earning a doctorate in nursing practice and stepping into a corporate leadership role, Cristine has built a career defined by growth, mentorship, and innovation. In this conversation, she shares how she approaches hiring infection preventionists, why she believes diverse backgrounds can bring fresh perspectives into the field, and how her organization is creating structured training programs to help new infection preventionists succeed. If you're looking for insight into leadership, professional growth, and the future of infection prevention, you won't want to miss it. Let's dive in.
This episode is sponsored by Clutch Recruitment, the leading recruiting firm in the country, recruiting exclusively within infection prevention and control.
The first
What's that
meeting,
first story? Your first
they took
meeting.
me to a meeting with construction workers. And there was like a lineup of construction men in the lobby. And I was thinking, what kind of job is this? Why are they asking me to talk to the construction workers? They were talking about ceilings and walls and renovations and demo, etc. I said, I have no idea what I got myself into. And that hospital was forever under construction. And I want to say 50% of what I was learning the first year was about construction. And in the beginning, I was trying very hard to pretend I understood what they were doing. And then after a while, I said, you know what? I don't need to do it. I don't need to learn anything about construction. I just need to learn about dust and how to control it. But it gave me an idea of how broad and encompassing infection prevention was from the get-go. I mean, construction, I had no idea.
No idea. That'd be far. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. So, okay. So you came in, I want to hear your, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I want to hear your philosophy now. Obviously you went on to get a doctor in nursing practice, which there's not many, infection prevention professionals that have that. So goodness, I've got so many questions here. You mentioned that your MPH was probably more beneficial to your infection prevention role than the associates in nursing. But then you went and got a doctor in nursing. So I'm curious now, after getting the doctorate, was that particularly helpful for you with regards to infection prevention, or was that just you wanting to challenge yourself and pursue further?
Well, I wanted
education
to challenge myself, obviously, to get to that program. It was a very, I mean, it was an opportunity that I could not accept. I didn't say that right, but it's pretty much a scholarship, Jacob, and it was I want to say a free program for selected candidates in a really good school, and it offered leadership opportunities for me. So at that time in my career, I was thinking about moving up in terms of leadership, and the opportunity to get a doctorate and this is a nursing executive leadership was seems to be the right step to get onto. So that's why I did it. In terms of how it helped with my infection prevention career, I mean, it certainly elevated my position from a professional perspective,
Right.
having a doctorate
Hmm.
after my name. There is something about that. But the course itself, the program itself, helped me with understanding operations at a different level and engaging with leadership at a different level. It also forced me to communicate and to read quite differently. I mean, that's what doctorate degrees are for, writing and reading evidence. But I think the number one advantage or result of it is that it helped my engagement with leadership and the C-suite, and also elevated me in the eyes of my peers, and really made me a model for others in my team. In fact, there's someone in my team, we just got her DNP too last year, to say, okay, I want to do more too, and see what it would do for me. But I think that from a personal perspective, I wanted to get a DNP because I was thinking to maybe my next career would be international public health or infection prevention.
Oh, very
And I know when you go
okay.
outside this country, you go to Europe or Asia, for instance, they really put emphasis on advanced degrees. So I said I will just get a terminal degree and be done with it.
Very much so.
It was free. It was a good program, a good
Yeah.
school. So I said, let me go for it. So that was my personal
No, that's great.
uh,
That's great.
ambition, if in getting that degree as
Yeah,
well.
that's great. Well, now that you're educated very highly on both the public health side and epidemiology side and the clinical piece, when you go, and we'll get into who you've hired and kind of what that team makeup looks like, but when it comes to an overall hiring philosophy, um, when you're going to hire an infection preventionist, which is there a preference on one background or the other, or how do you determine if you're going to require a nurse like a lot of places do, or do you have a different kind of thought on that?
Well, I am restricted, first of all, of the job description. I mean, people don't think about that, but there's a very specific job description. I do not uh, intentionally look for nurses, but the job descriptions
Hmm.
call for that, so I ended up with nurses. So that's not the most important thing to me. I hate to say this, but experience is important. Um, and but at the same time, I want to provide experience for people because that's how we're going to grow our profession, and our
Right.
team is to provide experience. So, I mean, I'm always looking for healthcare experience, some public health experience. You don't necessarily need to be an infection preventionist for the hospital, although that's preferred in the job description. So, any experience in healthcare, experience in public health, uh, experience in managing programs. Those are the experience and qualities that I'm looking for. Um, and then the others that I'm looking for are not really written. And I always think that hiring people is a leap of faith anyway. You're not getting the real deal until you work with that person in a year's time, and then you find out. I had been very fortunate that I have hired the individuals I have hired so far had turned out to be was great interview and turned out to be greater in real life, and we're open to
Oh, wow.
development. That's really what I want. I would like to be able to develop people, and if they have potential, and you sense that during the interview, how they answer or how their career had been, open for adventure, because I think that's what
Hmm.
infection prevention is on a daily basis, um, and able to think outside the box. Uh, there's not a lot of those in infection prevention. We're so restricted, we're so boxed in. So
Hmm.
if during the interview you are showing potential to take some risks, and to think a little differently. I love that. Those are the people for me.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of being boxed in, you mentioned kind of being at the mercy of the job description that's given to you. Who, and I realize it might be different at different hospitals, but who actually puts together the job description?
Essentially the job description was there, and it had been
Okay.
modified and redeveloped for years now since I started. So we do have a say in it. Well, some of us, like myself, in my level, I would have a say in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is in a system like ours. It's developed by human resources, obviously, and it's really generic job description. I mean, I don't know who created the first job description, but they're quite generic. But it's developed by HR, developed by leaders who are looking for that particular position, and by me, for me, experts like me, in the organization. And with job description, you don't want to be so specific because you want to open it up to a lot more candidates.
Yeah, you want to leave room for.
And infection prevention is so hard to write, to describe to people. Like it's hard to capture everything that you're supposed to be doing in there. Well, you're not supposed to, but then you want it to be descriptive enough that people who are not infection preventionists would have an idea what they're going in. Unlike me, who went in front of a construction worker, like, what did I do? So yes, it's always infection prevention is so hard to describe to people. I mean, nowadays they think it's mask.
Yeah.
Used to be just hand hygiene, and now it's masking. It's the pandemic, or microscope. You've probably seen the resume or the interviews. Oh, as a child,
Oh yeah,
I had a microscope and I was looking at organisms. Like, I've never used a microscope in this job.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do work with bugs. But anyway, people have preconceived notions of what it was about.
For sure. Okay, going back to your first role, the coordinator role. Obviously, you didn't know what you're getting yourself into, and an awesome first day experience there. Once you realized kind of what you needed to learn, I mean, you mentioned construction, but there's obviously a lot of places that you may need to learn things. How did you go about learning those things? I mean, you had clinical knowledge, so you brought in that, and you had like education in public health. But I mean, if there's anything that I understand about infection prevention now, like you're constantly learning and constantly doing different things. So in your first role, kind of going into that, did you have somebody you leaned on, or were you heavily involved in APIC, or like what did you, how did you learn those things? Or how would you encourage other people to learn those things when they get into a situation like that?
Very fortunate. Okay. I was gifted a preceptor. My manager was my preceptor, and she was very academic in her approach of presenting and training. So she had given me all the resources and references that she could think of at that time and made me read all of them. So it was very traditional. It was very basic. There was a book, an orientation book that she was following, and we went by the letter when it comes to that book. I had that binder that I had to go through in the first 3 months. And she mentored me through the entire thing. Now, she's a certain style of infection preventionist. Just like in nursing, you kind of inherit the wisdom of your preceptor. But she was very wise and very specific. So that was the gift for me, I thought. And then I was very self-driven too. And infection prevention is for you to really acquire the knowledge. You have to be very self-motivated and driven. So I did a lot of studying that first year. I was so conscious of the expectation that I had to be expert from day one, which is not fair, but it seemed to be like that. I mean, you're brought into rooms. After that construction, there had been many other rooms I was brought into, and the people's expectation in the room is that I have the answer, and I know what I was talking about. Even though they just said, "Oh, she's been here for a week," but they would ask you questions as if you should know the answer. And I was under pressure at that time to learn everything. I felt like, I guess that's an imposter syndrome. I felt like, because I did
Mm-hmm.
know the text, I knew what was written in many of these references, whether it's Apex, CDC. I mean, academically I knew it, but I felt like there was something missing. It was the experience behind all those standards, because they're not enough. But I found a fire hose and like literally swallowed everything the whole year just to learn everything. I still have that same
Yeah.
expectation, which I have to tamper down. I really expect infection preventionists who are new to learn as much as possible. I mean, it will never stop, but there's still the expectation that has not changed. So,
Right. How how long how long was it until you felt like you really had a handle
like, I
on what you
felt
were doing?
confident.
You felt confident in that you were prepared to answer the questions that
I
people
think
were expecting you to
superficially,
know.
after 2 years, I felt like
2 years.
I had the answers, but the confidence, I think, grew e- exponentially. I want to say this like years later during the pandemic. And I want to say the confidence that I'm talking about is the confidence to say, I don't know everything, and but I can have a dialogue with you. I can have a conversation with you. It's not just saying, "Oh, let me get back to you." It's something else. Like, I can maintain my integrity. I can maintain the respect of that person, but at the same time, not have the answer. So I think the confidence of not having all the answer and be fine with it did not happen till much years later. But superficially, I want to say after 2 years, and I did study a lot. I did. I felt confident that
Mm-hmm.
I knew the answers. I was confident in my environment. I was comfortable, and so I understood the context. That I think is the word I'm looking for. In addition to text, in addition to just didactics, technical stuff, you need to understand the context. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean the environment that you're in, the services that you are working with, and the people that you're working with, and the workflow. I think after 2 years, I had an idea, and I could like consider context, and that helped with the knowledge and the confidence.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the obviously the certification in infection control. For a long time, they required 2 years of experience before you could test. Now I think it's more a strong recommendation. I guess it sounds like the 2 year recommendation was probably good. It seems to be right in line with when you started to feel comfortable as an infection preventionist too. When when did you decide it was time for you to get your certification, and then what motivated that? And then also, did you pass the first time? Was it what you were expecting, or just give me your thought
The
process as far as
certification, yeah.
going after that CIC?
It is a requirement for us to get certified after 2 years or within 2 years. So that's part of our job description here in our system. So I had to get certified. So I got
Mm-hmm.
certified year two of of being an infection preventionist. Um,
Gotcha.
I want to say this though. You don't need 2 years experience to pass that
Let's
certification.
hear it.
Anyone can pass that if they
Yeah,
study.
I've seen it. I mean, well, I was going to say, I've seen whenever they
Mhm.
drop that 2 year requirement. I mean, I saw some MPHs coming out of school with their CIC, and I was like, I mean, this says something, but I don't think it
Yeah,
says what it used to say
yeah,
when they required the 2 years of experience. I mean, it certainly shows that you
yeah.
can study and you're disciplined enough and motivated enough to like learn this stuff, but I mean, it's
No,
not
I
real
mean,
world. It's not
like most
experience.
certifications are.
And
I
there's,
mean, you can. I
yeah.
mean, you can definitely prepare for it and study it, but I believe in it because I think that's the most tangible, demonstration of our competency. There are others, obviously, and it helps elevate our profession to have a very specific board certification. It is a requirement for our infection preventionists here, as I said to you, within 2 years. So, and it is a milestone for our infection preventionist here, to be certified. I do want to say the recertification was hard, and they did it open book, and that was so
Oh, really?
hard. And that I believe uh, relied on a little bit of experience, which makes sense because you get recertified after 5 years. So that is a hard one. Um,
Yeah. Now, am I correct? And you don't have
well,
to
there are
retest
options.
anymore?
You can retest if you choose to.
Okay.
You can retest in person, which is easier than retesting at home, which is what I've done. Or you can recertify by IPUs or infection prevention units, and that to me is
That's
just
what I
a
was thinking.
lot of
Okay.
work, but that gives you credit for your experience, and also challenges you if you're thinking about it 5 years hence, to do things beyond infection prevention, or to like stretch yourself, write, join external
Mm-hmm.
organizations, speak. I like that. I think they could make streamline it a little bit more, um, make it just a little easier. I mean, infection prevention as a job is hard already. Make it a little easier and friendly. But I really like that option for the IPs to get recertified that way.
Gotcha. Now and I'm just reading your LinkedIn. That's why I'm looking down here. Um, so you were a year as a coordinator. Person
Mm-hmm.
above you left. You became manager. Looks like you. So okay. So as a manager, now all of a sudden, a year in, you're the person that truly is the person everybody's going to and expecting to have answers and guidance, which sounds like you put the work in order to do that. Um, how big of a change was it to have people reporting to you?
Yeah, and let me tell you this too. That was my first time as a manager. Period. Have people reporting to me. I mean,
Okay.
just personally, it was very natural for me, but it added to my sense of responsibility. I felt that extra
Gotcha.
responsibility, and I had to develop this new role of managing a person and being responsible for that person's kind of well-being at work, and developing that person and training that person,
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring that we are on the same page and they're representing the program well or accurately, which is more important. So
Yeah.
yes, it was quite different. It's an added responsibility, and it can be overwhelming. So I had to learn right away how to delegate and train and trust, because otherwise you'd be doing two people's jobs. At that time, I have way more now. But yes, it is really different. Infection preventionist, if they had if they have not managed before, I think could use management skills, and be really trained in it, or be self-aware enough to look for that kind of opportunities, because you are going to need that. It's so front facing. Infection prevention is
That's a.
it.
Let's say that's a good lead in to a question. Then, how do you, if you were speaking to a staff level IP, just a standard infection preventionist, and they wanted to gain some management experience so they'd be more
Hmm.
comfortable in a management role one day, what kinds of things would you encourage them to do? I mean, like, do you allow the space for your infection preventionists to lead projects
Oh
or do
yes.
poster presentations, or like what opportunities could they potentially look for? Or if you were even speaking to a manager, how would you
Oh my
encourage your
gosh,
managers to
yes.
provide opportunities for
I want to
gaining
say our
skills?
organization is all about that. And I'm not just saying that. This organization is all about developing people more than anything else. But yes, I definitely it's really hard to train as a manager as an IP because the number of people you work with is very limited. I mean, in our hospitals, there's a department of one person. So, from a traditional sense, you cannot manage people per se. You can have people reporting up to you, but you can certainly gain management skills by managing project, managing the people you work with, even the ones that you partner with. You're given resources, right? Like, oh, someone's data analyzing for you, or someone's taking your minutes in your committee, or someone's facilitating that for you. Those could be management experience. You just need to be intentional about it. So I think in a natural setting, infection preventionists are managers anyway, right? You're managing people to do something, um, uh, or influencing them to do something, or you've been given an initiative, whether you own it or not. If it has anything to do with infection, you own it. So you need to have project management skills and people skills. So yes, I definitely expect it for the IPs working with me to learn and practice and be good at managing project and people. They work with multiple uh, teams and partners, and they can practice it. Oh, the other thing that I do, especially now at my level, is I encourage them to get an intern, work with interns. That's really one way to hone your management skills, managing people's time, right? Giving them responsibility, assigning things to them. So that's if there's no opportunity for them to have direct reports, internship, getting interns is one way to get that experience, and mentoring people is another.
Yes, it's great. I hadn't heard that one before. That's a good thought. So you've mentioned that your team has kind of grown quite a bit. So and obviously you've moved up in the system. Can you just quickly go over your progression? You started as a coordinator, then jumped into a manager. Sounds like one person at the time, but then anyway, how big?
Well,
is
let me give you a sense of my organization.
What does it look like?
Okay, so I started as an infection coordinator and became an infection prevention manager for a hospital that's part of a system here, of a 21 hospital system. So we have 21 hospitals, thousands of clinics. And then we're also part of a bigger enterprise. So there are other regions, but there's one region here, Northern California, with 21 hospitals. So after 4 years of being a manager, I just grew tired of it, really, of the politics in a hospital. It can get redundant and cyclical, and I just wanted to expand my influence. And this is the public health in me. I think as I've told you, we're like a small country. There is an opportunity for me to influence change at a different level, and be able to move forward infection prevention interest at that level. So I moved to the regional office, and became actually not an infection prevention coordinator, but a consultant that has infection prevention expertise. Um, and then I did that. I don't know why this keeps happening to me. I think I did that for 2 years. And then there was a reorganization, and my manager at that time got reorganized out, and I ended up being by myself. And at that time, and there was also reorganization happening at the local level, and essentially all our IPs had been moved around so that we only have one IP per hospital. So you can imagine how traumatic that was for everybody. But anyway, and really the first project that was given was how to centralize our surveillance for 21 hospitals. And that gave me the team that I started with. I started centralized surveillance with 4 team members. And by the way, this was the time of Ebola. So it was too much. But anyway, so I moved up to region, as I said. We centralized surveillance. I had 4 teams. And I really worked hard to create a program regionally, and was fortunate enough to have very creative, forward-looking leaders at that time, and I was able to uh, successfully convince everybody that we needed a program from a regional level. So from there, I've grown my team. I now have 11 people reporting to me, one of which is actually not infection prevention because my portfolio expanded a little bit. But I have 10 infection preventionists working with me at the region, and then I have interns and also a project manager who is
Okay.
a contractor. So it's quite a big team for me, but we're a big system, and their work is to support medical centers.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned kind of the main thing was centralizing surveillance for you. So this team of 10, are they specifically surveillance people? So they are a true full
at a
IP.
regional sense, or I think in the community that's known as a corporate IP, but they are assigned. So the non-surveillance IPs are assigned. They have their own portfolios of work, so they have their own initiatives, projects, etc. But at the same time, they're also assigned medical centers to mentor. So they have specific assignment
Gotcha.
to be the mentor for the local infection preventionist um, at the hospitals, and also work with the leaders there. So that is how we're structured. And then we have a regional program too that,
Gotcha.
of course,
Okay.
they're involved in.
Gotcha. Okay. So the 10 people are essentially all corporate IPs or
Yes,
regional
exactly.
IPs that essentially will
Mm-hmm.
help the 21 hospitals. Got it.
Is.
Okay, that's a cool setup. Hey, do you like that structure? I mean, I don't know if this was like your brainchild or if this was kind of tasked to you, but do you like how that's worked?
I do. I think it provides it's a different kind of infection prevention practice for my team. And again, it's a higher, more global level. But it's really premised on mentorship. And again, managing and people and programs at a different level. So yes, I love it. The IPs that work with me started as a hospital-based infection preventionist, also had no idea what they're getting into, and ended up loving it. It just offers different opportunities at, at, at this level, and allows them to work with multiple people um, outside of infection prevention or outside the stakeholders that are just interested in infection prevention. So it's a really good ground for experience, for career building in my part, and molding someone to think of infection prevention just a little differently. Um, and they're on developing themselves too as leaders.
Mm-hmm. Right. What when you kind of transitioned into this more corporate role and more kind of executive leadership position, what was the biggest change for you? Because obviously you had worked in a single hospital or in hospitals for a while, so I mean, seemingly is a pretty significant change, especially knowing that you work a lot from home or work remotely. But yeah, was there anything you weren't anticipating, or was there anything? I guess what was that change of scenery like?
Oh, it's big. The biggest thing is to get out of that hospital-centric thinking, and which you would fell victim to in the beginning because that's the only world you know, and then opening your mind up to other hospitals' experience or looking at it globally, and how just because you think it's right or it's written in the standards that's the way to go. So opening your perspective up to be more global is one change. The other change is that being more very respectful are sometimes forced to respect operations and understanding financials, market, etc., how
Yeah.
business decisions are made, and how that influence the decisions or your recommendations, and not feeling bad if your recommendations are not taken. At first, I thought, well, this is the right thing. Why don't we just do it? But the right thing is not the only thing. So that took a little while. But I want to tell you, I love it from day one. I just I like looking at what's happening from that level. It just gave me such a bigger point of view, like seeing the forest like that. It was exhilarating.
Yeah.
I love it. Just the opportunity to influence more. It took a while, um, but it excited me. I want to tell you the pandemic. I'm surprised you haven't talked about it. That completely changed me, as it did many. But it changed my thinking of my career and how I was seen too, um, organizationally. But yeah, oh my gosh,
Keep going. How was it
well,
changed?
it. I, I think as I've told you, it offered me. It made me like 150% confident. It's funny. I think having the responsibility to
Hmm.
make decisions, because no one was making decisions in the beginning. Everyone was afraid, and everyone was looking to infection prevention. Myself and my partner at the time, a physician. You haven't talked about having a physician partner. That's very important in healthcare, and especially during the pandemic. And being able to think in the moment and make decisions like that without fear, but at the same time checking all your boxes, right? Making a decision, but making sure you have the support of everyone else, the leaders behind you. So just in case you made a bad decision, which I'm sure I have made, someone is there to fall back on or to fall with you. But I think there were just tons of questions that I didn't know answer about, and I don't know what happened. I just felt comfortable about saying no, I don't know the answer, or yes, I know the answer, and this is what you need to do. Um, so, and everyone's respect for infection prevention and for myself or for what I know, like increased 100-fold. And that gave me kind of like the gravitas and well positioned me to ask for other things that had been waiting in the back. So it gave me influence. It added to my respect. It added to my responsibility, but I'm fine with that. So I think it strengthened my position like 1,000%. So,
Has that stayed that way, or was that just
well, there
within
are
the year
certain
and a half or
asks now
so
that would not be
following the
given,
pandemic?
but I think my ability to be on the
Gotcha.
table and to reach out to people that before I would not have been able to reach out to, is now there and permanent. So we build upon that, or I did, professionally, reputationally. I would not get everything I want, and not everything I say would would happen, but it it opened up my network, um, and kind of solidified my reputation in the organization, and I found a lot of partners because of that, because of the pandemic. I still and
Gotcha.
these are partnerships that I continue to leverage to this day for other things non-pandemic, and it elevated. I keep saying that it elevated infection prevention, and now people know to to think about it, to look for it, or to get my advice or input, and that's important. That's important for infection. I mean, we're all trying to be on the
Yeah.
table. The pandemic did that. So this is not true for everyone, obviously, uh, but I've told them that pandemic was an opportunity to seize. for your own self-interest as infection preventionist. So I capitalize on that 100%.
Yeah. And more, and yeah, no,
Oh
and
yes,
more will come.
more will
So, I mean,
come.
you've got to be prepared for those things. Now, so I have one more question, then I want to give you a chance to say anything that you just want to put on record. Last question. When it comes to managing across a large system like you are with a large team, standardization across hospitals, I imagine, is a pretty significant piece of that. And KP, I think that's probably one of their strengths compared to how other systems operate, from what I understand. But I want to ask, was that challenging for you to start doing that, particularly when every hospital is going to have a totally different culture? So was it? I don't know. I've heard different stories, people talking about it, thinking like, oh, well, this is how it should be done. I don't know why I'm being challenged on this. But then you learn pretty quickly that different hospitals have to do things a little bit differently depending on just how things work there. But can you just speak a little bit to maybe your philosophy on how to standardize things, but also maybe some surprises that you learned pretty quickly once you got into that?
Yeah, well, just like any organization, we are all about standardization. And I think what's surprising about that is that could mean different things, just slightly, to different people. Now, it's easier when there are like regulations behind it, right? Because then, you can standardize it. Or if the leadership had expressly stated that they want something standardized in a specific way, then that will happen. But if you have to do it through influence or through conviction, that's what makes it challenging. So, and it's always hard to do that. I think people will say, yes, we're doing what you said we're doing. We are green in our Harvey balls, whatever that is. We've check mark, but you go there, it's completely different, because anything is subject to different interpretations. So I think for me to be able to live with that is to be flexible. That, like I said, you think global but respect local. There would be local differences, there would be local drift, and that's fine. So I think you need to be a big thinker and say, all right, what are the priorities and what's the end game? What is it that you want to see at the end? Because different people might get there differently. As long as everyone understands the expectation of what they're supposed to deliver and where they need to be at, it's okay to be a little different going towards that goal. Now, there are certain things that they need to be completely in fidelity with, but there are things around there are some expectations that they cannot meet 100% harmonized because of local risks. So I think I had learned to accept that, and to not see that as failure, and just focus on the end game, because I don't want to sacrifice relationships just to get people to do things a certain way. So I always respect local issues, and give everyone the flexibility to work through that to get to the end. So I emphasize on, okay, as long as you get to this by this time, and these are the expectations, and you have a clear idea of the pathway to that, then that's fine. So but we start with standardization to introduce something, and we end with it. We talk about it all the time, knowing that some people are not 100% aligned with that, but they all know what they should look like at the end. So that's the most important. Because if you and I've been through this too. I mean, the beginning of my career, and sometimes I still get caught up in it. And this is something that I always mentor my IPs and my team to. It's okay if today they look totally different. Don't think of that as a failure on your part, but think of it as a journey. You'll get there at the end, but there would be like bumps and total blackout along the way. But it's okay. It's all right. So that's what I'm talking about. It comes from experience. It comes from working at a corporate level. It's getting your DNP or any advanced degree in leadership. and seeing the world outside infection prevention, to be able to think that way, to be like kind to yourself, so you're not so overwhelmed and think that it's your sole responsibility to make things
Right.
happen. But that took a while. Well, it took it
Okay.
happened in years, but I was ready for it, I think, in the very beginning.
Right. And okay, I lied. I have one more follow up question to this because of how you guys are structured. Um, so your team is in 21 different hospitals, but no one, if I understand it right, no one at the local facility
That's
reports
right.
to your team. So that forces you and your team to lead 100% through influence without like a direct report relationship. So I want to hear the challenges of that,
Yeah.
and then how do you
Yeah.
encourage your team to
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
have the influence they need?
Yes, that is completely true. No one reports to me directly. Now, their leaders, though, the infection preventionist leaders locally have a dotted line to our vice president. So that helps. And then our
Okay,
culture here of having a regional authority that can be, I guess, exerted at any time, is another thing. And but and then infection prevention being like framed in regulation here in California also helps. So, but outside of all of that, the influencing without direct reporting, that is purely relational and reputational. So, building yourself up as the leader for that group, or someone to that they can rely on or trust, is really the challenge for every single regional IP. Now, it helps that, well, it helps, but sometimes it didn't. Um, that my IPs were from the hospitals themselves. So they started as a local IP
gotcha.
and moved up. So there were like growing pains in the first 2 years where they had to exert like their authority, if you will, or the fact that I am now a regional person and coming with, some sort of regional authority that's not really real, just perception. But yeah, so it's building on trust, building on relationship, mentoring, like just using the mentoring approach. That's what helps. That's what helps with influencing outcomes in our organization. We have a peer group, okay, which is very important. So we have
Okay.
a peer group where our infection preventionists and some of their team members who are not infection preventionists but part of their work come together every month, um, and meet and talk about anything infection prevention issues. That's the time when they can give us feedback regionally, and we do the same thing, review things. It's led by the local IPs, so they're leading their peers. We have a distribution that's really the
Okay.
communication forum, so they can have exchange of ideas, run things by each other. This is very important in this country of hospitals. So that group,
Yeah.
that platform, helps with influencing each other, and knowing that, and then them thinking of the regional group as their mentor and kind of like guiding light certain things, or just a board to to run ideas by. So yeah, that's one of the vehicle for influence, is that peer group, and just the daily interaction really helps.
Gotcha. Great. That's a good answer. And I don't think that I've heard anybody
Oh my
reference
gosh.
peer groups at
Well,
all
yeah,
at
I
this
mean, in a
point. So
system
that's a new.
style organization, it's essential to have a peer group. And we're infection preventionists are well positioned to have a peer group, to have a community of practice, because our profession is very specific. We have very specific issues and world, so it makes sense to talk to each other. I mean, in the beginning when I started as an infection preventionist, I thought it was like a Joy Luck Club. The movie Joy Luck Club, and everybody was just
Yeah.
complaining.
Yeah.
You know how it is. You bring the same people together with the same problem. They just
Right.
start talking about their problems because their problems mirror others. So there was a lot of complaining. Um, and I want to tell you, I changed that when I became the leader of this group. No complaints. Well, people still complain, but be part, offer a solution, don't just state the problem and wallow in it. And
Right.
that took a culture
Right.
change too. But having a group, having like the ability to call a friend, having a lifeline, oh my gosh, that is one thing that I think keeps some people within the system. Otherwise, you'd leave. You're by yourself. So
Right. Yeah. No.
it
Infection
can
prevention can be a
be.
lonely world. So that's a good, yeah, that's a good deal. Okay. I've asked everything that I think I need to ask. Do you have any questions that, I don't know, you wish I would have asked, or any soapbox you want to stand on
Soapbox
for a
that
second
was
and
stand on.
share with young IPs, or,
Huh?
yeah, I don't know. Anything at all that you think would be important for
Oh,
aspiring IPs to hear?
well, I want more aspiring IPs. I think everybody thought that during the pandemic there would be like a surge of interest in infection prevention and infectious disease. I think in the beginning there was. I know that just fizzled out with infectious disease. We're not really seeing the surge of infection preventionists. I think they learned pretty much that it was quite hard. It was scary and challenging. So anything that we can do professionally to open it up to aspiring IPs or inviting interest is something that I'm interested in. We have a program here that we're calling Infection Prevention Fellowship. Right now, we are focusing on our new IPs, new to our organization, or just had like less than 5 years of experience, because you cannot really know everything in 5 years. And we have an actual fellowship for 20 weeks where you are in a module. You follow modules. Um, you go through mentorship, and there's a one-to-one preceptorship. And we are now in our third cohort coming on. So we have graduated 7
Oh, wow.
IPs within our system, who now feels confident that at least they have like this knowledge. Because there are really no IP school for you to send folks to. I mean, there was the EPI 101, 102, and APIC, but you need more than that. So that's the program that we created. It's kind of based on that and based on civic domains, but it's also very organizationally driven, and people appreciate it. So we are going to open it up to non-IPs and see if we can modify the program. But I think we need opportunities and programs like that, because there are some people who are interested in infection prevention, but they just don't know where to start. And also, as I've said, we started with the job description. Our job description is so biased towards nurses and also experience. Like, how can you come with experience when you haven't had any experience or opportunities for experience? So
Right.
yes,
Especially when there's
exactly.
not
So
a
we're
real
trying to grow our
education
own
to
kind of
support it.
rootgrass
Yeah.
IP, grassroots IP group here. So that's really what I'm interested in. Um,
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And I've seen a couple of other things pop up. I think Shante Walton down at UCLA is doing some sort of
mhm,
program that's
mhm.
similar, I imagine. And then I want to say University of Michigan
University
maybe
of
doing
Michigan
something
doing
similar.
something all the time. They
No,
have a really good. They have an
always, right?
aspirational program, I want to say.
Very
Yeah.
much so. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Voice for Infection Prevention. We hope you found our discussions informative and insightful. Remember to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations with experts in the field, and don't forget to leave us a review to let us know what you think. For additional resources and to stay updated on the latest news in infection prevention, visit our website at voiceforip.com. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, stay safe and continue your commitment to excellence in infection prevention.